Hey, we are live. Oh, it's already automatically recording. So, all right, cool. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome. Next time, we should probably have like jazzy music. Like, let's get it started.
I had an 8 a.m. class last semester, and that's how the professor would start it, just with a bunch of random music, but blare it.
That's good. It's like, wake up, time to get started. Hi, Mary Lou.
Hi, ma'am.
Hey, Mary Lou.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I'll wait about one more minute as people come in before we get started.
Said, do you play any instruments?
I don't. I don't at all. But I am like a hummer, like one of those. Like,
what about a whistler?
Not so much a whistler, but I like, and it's like not really songs, but
it's your own theme song.
It's my own theme song. Do you play an instrument?
No.
No.
I took piano lessons.
I wish I played the piano. I have really large hands, so.
Oh, there's still time.
Well, I feel like I wouldn't retain as much as,
Not with that attitude. I believe in you. I think you can make it happen.
You're right. You've inspired me, so we'll get it cracking.
Add it to the list.
All right. Welcome, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. Hi, and welcome to WISP Presents How I Got into Sports Tech. Genevieve and I are former WISP fellows and are excited to welcome two awesome product marketing guests, Nancy Hensley and Yana Bulva. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with WISP, Women in Sports Tech is the nonprofit created to drive growth opportunities for women at all stages of their careers throughout the sports tech industry and innovation landscape. Through our community, we're uniting men and women to create a more successful and equitable industry. Today's webinar, WISP Presents How I Got into Sports Tech, was created to provide a platform for discovery and discussion.
Okay, Nancy Hensley is the Chief Product and Marketing Officer at Stats Perform, a global sports tech company based in Chicago and London. Nancy currently oversees the product innovation, design, and marketing teams. Nancy joined Stats Perform in 2020 from a long career in big tech at IBM Corporation. At IBM, Nancy held a number of leadership roles that spanned technical sales, development, marketing, product growth, and digital. Throughout her years at IBM, Nancy remained focused on data, analytics, and AI. Nancy previously served as Chief Digital Officer at IBM Data and AI prior to joining Stats Perform. In her years in technology, Nancy has served as a passionate advocate for women in tech and leadership, working as a mentor both internally at IBM and externally. Today, Nancy continues that passion to promote women in leadership and is excited to be working with women in sports tech. Nancy also recently has become a member of Chief, a leading network of women across industries working to promote women in leadership positions. Yana Bulva is Senior Vice President, Global Head of Product at Catapult, a world leader in sports performance technology. Yana joined Catapult in mid-2020 to lead the product and design teams following long tenures at both Amazon and American Express, where she gained a wealth of experience taking innovative, customer-centric B2C and B2B services to market. Having held leadership roles across product and marketing, she has built teams for scale and launched multiple new businesses and products, developing deep experience in subscription business models. Yana is thrilled to be working with women in sports tech and has been a longtime mentor for women rising in their careers. Yana was also one of the founding members at Chief, an organization committed to driving meaningful change in support of women leaders. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, so yes.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. So we'll go ahead and dive into the questions. Also, if anybody has any questions, feel free to submit them to our Q&A chat or the regular chat. And at the end, we will, if we have enough time, pile through them. Alrighty. So both of you have a lot in common, that you joined sports tech companies to lead product teams in mid-2020, coming from other industries. How do you both decide to enter the sports industry?
Which one do you want us to go first? I guess I'll start. So I think it's a couple things. One is obviously a love of sports and it's a combination of loving data and loving sports all together. But one of the things that I was always challenged at, being on the maker side of data and AI, was that I wasn't getting close enough to the application of it. And we kind of relied on our clients to be able to bring the data and the challenges to the table. So for me, it was really, really exciting to, take my experience as a maker on the software side and get even closer to leveraging data and artificial intelligence to really solve some challenges, give people superpowers in a way that it specifically applies to sports. And that's what's been really fun and really very much my dream job. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Nope, different. So no, actually my journey was quite different, I think. It's interesting because I'll be frank, I was not well aware of the sports tech industry before I really started exploring this role. I was from New York, I was in media and tech. It's just sports tech doesn't have a huge presence in New York, other than maybe some more consumer focused things like Peloton. So, I came to know about the current role and ultimately the company and the industry through the current CTO, Will Lopes, who I used to work with previously. But as I really kind of dug into the company, the industry, through research and conversations with other team members, I realized it's still a relatively fragmented industry, but very much on the rise. And with Catapult having such a strong position in that space, I really wanted to be part of the evolution and the growth of this company and the sports industry as a whole. I would say, why sports? I think one reason, which may be similar to Nancy's, but I love the fact that the space and the industry is heavily tapping into artificial intelligence and data analytics, and really looking at how that can be leveraged and developed to further empower coaches and teams and preparing players for competition. And I love that aspect of it, and I really wanted to dive deeper into it and learn more about it. And I think that the second reason, maybe more of a philosophical one, but I really love the way sports is the ultimate unifier across borders, politics, cultures, generations, and it really allows people to find common ground regardless of what teams they may be rooting for. And so I was really excited about that part and how it has that ability to transcend dividing lines and being part of that as well.
Wow, yeah. It's definitely why I played sports and, why I continue to work in it today.
Okay, so segueing to the next question. You both work on products themselves. For our attendees who don't really know what a product role is, could you share a little bit about your work and day-to-day? Also, for our attendees who aren't familiar, could you briefly share what Catapult does and what Stats Perform does?
I'll go first. I guess maybe let me start with Catapult. So our mission is that Catapult exists to build and improve the performance of athletes and teams. And ultimately, we enable professional sports teams to achieve the same basic goals, improve their performance, both physical, technique, tactical, reduce injury risk, help athletes recover as effectively as possible when they're injured. And so to that end, we have two cornerstone solutions among others. One is around performance tracking technologies that enables teams to monitor workloads of athletes and the workloads that they face in training and games. In this way, teams are able to understand the physiological impact of different activities, which is really crucial to their ability to perform at their optimal levels and to avoid unnecessary fatigue. And then the second sort of cornerstone set of solutions is really coaching software in the form of a suite of video solutions and analytics that enable our coaches to better scout, recruit, teach and train their teams and athletes ultimately to win. So that's the Catapult piece. From the product side, it's a wide range of activities, and ultimately it starts with understanding the customer and the customer problem, and then creating a product and launching a product. That maybe like sums it up in a nutshell. But from a day-to-day perspective, it goes from, if I take it sort of linearly like that, which it's not always as linear, but it's really about defining that customer problem. What is the pain point? What is the customer trying to achieve? Identifying that need, which is actually quite tricky because you can't really ask the customers what they want because often they don't know what the possibilities are. And so it's your job to tease that out. But ultimately, as you figure that out, figuring out how to stack it on your roadmap, how you're going to build against this feature or new product that you've identified a need for, getting stakeholder alignment. So working with sales, with data science, with engineering, and then ultimately building it. So working really closely with the engineering teams, our data science and sports science teams. Depending on what kind of thing it is, it might be developing algorithms, it might be creating product features, and then working with marketing and sales to launch it and get it to market and get it in customers' hands and position it to customers in a way that they'll understand the value of it.
All right, I'll go next. You actually did a great job of describing products. So I'll start with Stats Perform. Stats Perform has a long history that goes back to the gentleman who inspired Moneyball with writing the baseball abstracts. He was one of our founders. The reason why I bring that up is because it's core to who we are, to not just be the collectors of sports data, but to leverage that sports data and look at how we challenge sports and how it's measured, how it's consumed, how it's looked at through the eyes of that data. So our mission is really to leverage data and advanced capabilities, artificial intelligence, natural language generation, advanced techniques, to look at into every corner of the game, tell really good stories with that data, engage the fan, inspire a bet, and also to evaluate performance, much like what Catapult does as well. So that's really at the core of what we do. We do the data collection work ourselves. We cover over 500,000 events. We collect billions and billions of unique data points every year. And most of you probably interact with our data on a daily basis and you just don't know it. So if you ask Alexa, hopefully she doesn't hear that, Siri, or do a Google search, the chances are you're interacting with the data that we collect. Also, if you're watching a broadcast, like, I don't know, the Super Bowl, a few people watch that. And if you notice, our logo did come up at the end of the game because we are also a trusted partner to broadcasters to help them tell the story of the game with interesting statistics and analytics. So we have a couple different aspects to our business that composes of media, of sports books, supplying them data and video, team performance, and then in the big tech industry as well. So really exciting place to be. We have advanced our capabilities in our long history of being a sports data company and kind of parlay that into the advanced technology space, building on that with an AI innovation center, where we are looking to solve all sorts of challenges in sports with some advanced technologies, as well as in the media as well. Just to give you a great example is, using natural language to generate lots of information for the press so they can focus on the higher value stories and more unique stories as well. But also using advanced analytics and artificial intelligence to see the game very differently and tell a different story of the game that's really, really unique. And that's what fans really crave these days. So that's a little about Stats Perform. Like I said, it's a pretty cool place. It's my dream job. And on the product side, you know, I think, Yana, you said it pretty well. I mean, we look at product as a place where you're curating ideas so that you can deliver value, solve problems, create opportunities. A good product manager is who falls in love with a problem, right? And looks to find the solutions that will solve those problems or create those opportunities. And the biggest challenge, I think, on a day-to-day basis is the alignment within the organization, because you'll hear people say that a product manager is like the CEO or the CEO of their product. What that really means is that your influence and your ability to align and get everybody moving in the same direction around solving that problem or creating the opportunity is essential to your success as a product manager. So getting marketing aligned and telling the story and creating the value, getting sales feeling confident to sell it, helping engineers know what to build and when to build it, pulling all that together so that you can support it as an organization, you can scale it out. So it is a job that's much like the conductor of an orchestra. And it's all customer facing. So it's the day-to-day of a product, you're doing a little bit of everything across talking to clients, evangelizing, and moving the organization in the same direction and getting everybody aligned around how you solve that problem for clients.
Awesome. Thank you for that overview, both of you. One thing I've read in the past is that oftentimes when men are the ones designing products and serving as the engineers, the final product is something geared towards men in some way. Do you have any examples of a product related decision you have to make where you feel you were able to bring a different perspective and the product turned out better? That's a little loaded.
I mean, I think that when you're doing user research, we very much are a design thinking organization, and customer experience led. That it's your job as a product manager to make sure that there's diversity in the feedback that drives your product's iterations over time. So we are agile, we'll build an MVP and then we'll iterate on that from the time of a low fidelity mock to a high fidelity mock to a proof of concept to as we iterate along. Every step of the way, you've got to make sure that you're getting a representative of sample of feedback, not just whether it's male or female, but also different geographies, different age groups, right? So I think it's even a bigger challenge than just male female. I think you've got to create diversity across the board. Now, in the AI space, I think it's been a conversation for years that there aren't enough women creating the models, and that there's obviously some bias that's being created in maybe not the models that we're creating in sports, but in things that we use every day, whether it's recommendations for products that come across through media, different marketing platforms. I think that's an ongoing challenge that is very much a big conversation. But in day-to-day product, I don't see that as much because we're making sure we have enough diversity in our client feedback.
Yeah, so I agree with all of that. I think it's an interesting problem, right? Because it's not just a gender issue, right? You have, and then it's two sort of different problems, and it's really important to Nancy's point to really look at the customer and make sure your research and as you talk to customers, as you include customers in your conversation, is diversified. But there's kind of the problem of the design of the pure product utility, right? So like seatbelts are a perfect example, like mostly designed for men. And then there's the AI piece where there could be inherent bias based on historical data or improper consideration of the diversity of data that's going in that then pops out. Something that ultimately is used for decisions, and those decisions will be biased because of that algorithm. So it's I don't know that I have a perfect solution to this, but it is a tricky problem, both of those. But I think, you know, some of the things we've done, you know, one example is just hiring, right? We have, at this point, we have a really good, you know, gender and culturally diverse product and design team that can come at problems from different perspectives and really check each other on the way there. And that's really important. It's really important to make sure you're not considering yourself as the customer. It's actually a bias that comes in a lot. And there was a time where I had actually worked on a female-oriented product, but I wasn't a type of female that used that product. And so it was actually really hard to tease out, okay, I'm not actually the customer here, and you have to really listen to your customers. It doesn't matter if you're female or male or what have you. And then being really critical, particularly in the machine learning world, about the data that's going in order to spit out the data that will drive decisions on the other end.
Okay, cool. Would it be possible for you to walk us through your latest product launch? I know that sometimes it's a bit private until it's officially been launched. So.
I can do a little bit. So it's not that different from kind of what I described as a product role. So it kind of goes through all of those pieces. So, you know, in the last several months, we launched something called the Football Movement Profile, which is a set of analytics for football customers, or soccer in particular. We always have to distinguish between soccer and American football, as both are customers. And ultimately, it was a suite that was designed to classify every movement of a football player, ultimately for the purpose of allowing coaches to optimize performance and mitigate the risk of soft tissue injuries that come from some of these explosive movements when an athlete is fatigued. And so the process for that is we worked really closely with you know, a couple of customers that we have really good relationships with to really understand and identify the problem. Ultimately, identify the GPS tracking systems, which is a lot of the tracking systems used for with wearable technology in terms of positional data. But we're not well suited to capture some of these more what I would call micro movements. And there was really kind of this need to allow coaches to make even better and more informed decisions as they think about you know, player fatigue and injury risk and things like that. And so you know, we sort of identified what the problem was, and then we took it back to our internal sports and data science teams to go to work to really develop algorithms, collect data on the field, and work toward an accurate model to capture these analytics and ultimately fed content to our customers that they can make decisions off of. And so as those algorithms and data processes were going, we were also working with our engineering teams and got to work to actually build these algorithms into the software, which essentially enabled our customers to see the data in the context of all of the other data points that our wearable devices collect. And so that was sort of the process of identifying the problem, building the product, and then ultimately you get to launching the product. And this is where you work really closely with the marketing team, the sales team, to really define, you already know what the value proposition of the product is because you needed to identify it on the front end, but really kind of honing in on what the positioning of the product is. What are the key talking points that are going to resonate with your customer the most? And how do you bring that to market through a variety of different marketing channels, sales conversations, talking points, things like that. And then ultimately you get it to market and hope that customers love it, which is the best.
So I'll give you just maybe a slightly different perspective on launch as well, because that was a great summary. A launch 5 years ago, 10 years ago was very different than a launch of today, right? I mean, it's funny because I think I had a Facebook memory that came up of a big event that we had to launch a product when I was at IBM, and I thought, wow, we don't really launch like that anymore. And when you think about some of the biggest products on the market, like just the ones we know, Uber, Facebook, like, do you remember a big launch like boom and here they were? It doesn't happen that way anymore. And that's because with Agile, the launch actually starts at the concept within the squad. So the cross-functional teams are talking a lot earlier about value proposition, about the channels, about the message, right? And you're iterating on that over time. And I think one of my most favorite stories to tell, and that I always refer back to, that really speaks to true product market fit, which is, we all know Instagram, and we all know that Instagram was bought for, I don't know, a couple of $1 billion with Facebook. But Instagram wasn't launched as Instagram. It was actually launched, or made available, if you will, as a product called Bourbon. And Bourbon had all of this capability and it wasn't growing. And so they were iterating, and then they literally stopped, looked at the analytics and thought, well, people are really only using 3 things out of the 20 something things that we have. Let's relaunch this and just do those 3 things really, really well. And then boom, it took off. So I think when we notice a product, it's because it's gone through multiple iterations, and there's no big boom of a launch, because not as often anymore. Launch really means that it's available, it's more generally available. We've gone through a lot of iterations. We think we have gone from a minimum viable product to a minimum lovable product, but it's still going to iterate over time, because that's just the world of agile. So you think about your iPhone. When you got the iPhone the first time, it had like 2 apps that were completely useless. You could play games, or you could play games. Now you think about what the iPhone is today, and it's like, my whole life is on that darn phone. So I think of a launch as sort of a living, breathing thing that happens at the start of the concept, and that whole value proposition and how you're going to bring it to market, how you're going to message it, has to run within the squad as the product iterates over time. So just maybe a slightly different view.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Actually, maybe to add on to that, and it's sort of the evolution of product management as well, kind of what Nancy's talking about, where it used to be, that I still remember, sadly, the sort of the waterfall model, right? Where you had this entire set of requirements that you had to get to, which took maybe a year, maybe 2 years, and then you would launch the product. And that has evolved to Agile, where, to Nancy's point, you're constantly iterating, you're constantly thinking about the customer and how to position this thing to the customer and what that value is. And so, yeah, the way you market and the way you develop product together has really changed over time.
Yeah, it's not just changed product, but it's changed marketing too. And there's new roles that have evolved from that, like growth marketing roles and things like that, that kind of straddle that line between product and marketing, because they're really focused on, how do I hit the accelerator on growth once the product is generally available.
Awesome. We'll hit one more question before we go to the speed round. While Moneyball, Nancy, you mentioned this, definitely ushered in a new era for data analytics in sports, it still feels like players, teams, and fans have not fully embraced analytics. What are some of the challenges you face?
I'll start on this one. I think that it's a couple things. I actually think that there's been a lot more embracing from a fan perspective. That is probably more of a US thing than a global thing. And it's drawn from our apps like Fantasy, where we a lot of data around players, and we use that data to build out our fantasy teams. And so we really hunger for a lot of statistics and analytics. I think the real challenge is, can you make it consumable, and can you provide it timely, and can you curate it so that you're providing the right analytics for the right person? So personalization. We're focused a lot on how you visualize data, and some of these more advanced metrics. What's the best way to visualize them, even for a broadcaster who flashes up on screen, or for a fan who's trying to use metrics to just drive more fan engagement or build a fantasy team. So to me, it's about speed, it's about relevance, it's about personalization, and it's about making it really, really consumable. And I do think that there is a lot of steps forward. Teams are really embracing it, more so than they ever had before. And these technologies give them superpowers, because they can make better decisions based on that data. I saw something in the press yesterday about one of the soccer players who actually negotiated his entire contract based on all analytics, not an agent. So he used a bunch of data to do it. So I think you'll see more and more success stories of how people are truly embracing data and analytics and artificial intelligence to drive decisions. And I think fans want it because it's more of an immersive experience. And you're starting to see more of that coming through in the OTTs, in the second screen experiences. You got big players like Amazon with Twitch that's bringing more contextualized data in. You're seeing things like next gen stats, and you're, in addition to all the things that we do as well. Like, I think fans are hungry for it, but it has to be relevant, has to make sense, and it has to be really, really consumable.
Yeah, and I guess maybe the performance and coaching angle of this is very similar though. And, I think teams are embracing it a lot more than you would think. I think, as I said in the beginning, like the industry is still nascent and fragmented, right? So data comes from all sorts of places, and so it's the complicated thing about it is that it's not in one place. It's not a unified user experience. It's complicated data. So when you think of our wearables as an example and performance tracking data, we have sports scientists that look at that data, which have a different level of understanding of that data versus kind of a coach that's trying to plan out strategy of the game as an example, and they work together. But the data itself is still kind of complicated. And so the key in the data, Nancy mentioned visualization, but the key is really to create a great user experience that allows that data to be consumed in a much more intuitive way, with algorithms that allow anyone who needs to consume that data, whether it's a coach, a performance director, et cetera, allows them to consume that data very easily, understand what's happening, and then they can dig in further if they want to, or have a conversation with a sports scientist. And where it kind of really plays out is, your professional higher level teams have larger staffs. So you have like the staff of your sports scientists, and we have sports scientists that work with teams to help them understand the data and understand what to do and what decisions to make on the field. But as you go down to lower level teams, they don't have as much of that staff, and so the more intuitive and clear you can make it you can make it for them in order to understand what decision do I need to make next based on what I'm seeing, even though I don't necessarily have a sports science background. That's where it's going to get adopted more and more.
Cool. That's really useful insight. Okay, so let's move to the speed round. Favorite books?
Business wise or fun wise?
Maybe one of each.
I want fun.
Go ahead, you start then.
So I tend to go the nonfiction route generally, but the two that came to mind, it's actually hard for me to pick favorite books, but the two that came to mind are The Salt Fix, and there's another one called Caffeine. And they're really informative, but mostly just support my addiction to these things. And I thought they were great.
I would say fun-wise, anything on the Renaissance period, or I love the book Captain Corelli's Mandolin, and the movie just did not do the book justice. It's beautifully written. Business-wise, gosh, I have a couple of them. Hooked, Subscribed, Hacking Growth, and then I would recommend, I have a book recommendation for all product managers, which is Inspired by Marty Kagan.
That's a good one.
Okay, cool. I think I took a product management class last semester, and I'm pretty sure that the professor recommended that we give that one a read. Okay, now moving to podcasts. Maybe, again, one of each, fun and then business.
Fun, I would say I was so addicted to Serial and Somebody Knows Something. Those were my favorite. Business-wise, like I love the Breakout Growth podcast by Sean Ellis. He's one of my heroes and mentors in product and growth. And Leadership is Female by Emily Jensen, who is really just focused on being a woman in sports and how we create more leadership around that. I love that one too. There's some really inspiring, like uplifting stories there.
So there's a podcast called Hidden Brain, which I've recently gotten into, and it's really all about unconscious patterns that drive human behavior. And there's some really interesting stories in there that really kind of make you think differently about life and the world and things like that. And then maybe along similar lines, it's less so a business one more than a history one, but I think it's very applicable. It's called Revisionist History, and Malcolm Gladwell had started it. And it's really an interesting take on moments in history and what we think we know from those moments, but what we may not know that might actually change our perspectives on what happened. And so similarly, it stretches your brain to kind of help you think differently about different problems.
Right, because history, I mean, depending on where you are in the world, it's quite one-sided. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move into the audience submitted questions. So the first one, what is the most challenging part about aligning product strategy with business strategy?
I can start. So it's interesting. If you do it right, product strategy just ladders up to the wider business strategy for the company, right? A lot of that comes from consistent upward and downward communication, making sure teams understand where the business is going and how the product vision and roadmap and the different things that you're working on just ladder up into it and help to impact that strategy. In terms of challenge, I think the biggest challenge I thought of is, products take time. As agile as we are, products do take time to build. Sometimes you're making big bets on some product investments that you want to bring out to the marketplace. And so it's important when you're looking at business strategy to look at it from a lens of ensuring like an understanding of when certain products, especially if they're big investments, are going to be available and not hanging everything on that one thing, because whatever it is going to be experimental. To Nancy's earlier point, you get something in market, you see how it works, you iterate. And so just making sure, almost like from a calendarization perspective, but also just a financial perspective, making sure your business strategy is not only relying on your product strategy.
Yeah, I look at it in terms of outcomes. So the business strategy is about focusing on some key outcomes for the business, and the key word there is focus. So if you are focused on outcomes with your products for clients, you got to make sure that that fits into the scope of the focus of your business, right? So like, for example, yes, we know that there might be a problem in using AI to measure some of the physical and the injury aspects of an athlete. That's not in the focus of our business strategy. So I wouldn't go solve that problem. So I think you can constantly align and measure. You still want to be focused on customer outcomes, and sometimes those don't align perfectly. But I think a business strategy is, here is how we want to move our business forward, and it basically gives you a focus area to work within, and whatever problems you're trying to solve, make sure that it aligns with that focus and how you want to grow the business, how you want to move the business, and that's not outside the lines.
Awesome. And then we'll just wrap up with one more question. Do you have any recommendations or resources for people looking to make the switch to product management?
I definitely would start with Marty Kagan's book. And the reason why I would say start with that is because this is not an easy job. And it's not what people think it is. So some people think, well, I can easily move from marketing to product, or I can easily move from sales to product. It takes a number of skills that combine leadership, communication, problem solving, strategy. And I think the book frames the different aspects of the challenges of product really nice. So I would say the first thing is make sure that you want to do this. It is not the easiest job. It's not a 9-to-5 job. If you are an insanely curious product manager, you're thinking about it all the time. Your brain hardly ever turns off. So you have to be the right I guess, personality and bring the right things to the table and evaluate yourself that way. And then I think there's a ton of great online resources that can give you different methods and things to look at about being a product manager. But I think first you want to evaluate like what makes a great product manager and evaluate yourself against that.
Yeah, I totally agree, Marty Kagan. Awesome. I think maybe from a just online resources perspective. So there's an organization called Pragmatic Institute that I think has some great content to understand the different aspects of product and what it entails. I think once you decide that you want to be a product person, it's a great place to go to understand more of the details of what that entails and kind of they have everything from, how do you create a roadmap, how do you run an agile process, to like templates and a variety of courses and things. So it's actually a really good place to start. And then also, depending on how technically inclined you are, if you're truly more on the engineering side than the product side, which could be the case, Grace Hopper is a great place to go. They run boot camps for women engineers and kind of just a great organization to understand and be a part of if you're kind of more inclined in that direction.
Awesome.
There's also, I'll jump on, there's also a new role that's emerging inside a product too, that's called a growth product manager, that I think is another aspect of product management that's just starting to take off. We had them at IBM. So for large scale product organizations, that you basically have a core product manager that brings products to market and a growth product manager that takes over on the growth side. So there may be an aspect to product that you haven't considered as well. And there's lots of great resources out there on growthhackers.com and various places that kind of talk about that growth product manager.
Awesome. Yeah, I will definitely add a lot of these to my reading list. Yana, I love Malcolm Gladwell. I have Think on my list already. Thank you both so much. And thank you to everyone for joining us on today's WISP Presents How I Got into Sports Tech webinar. Please check out our new career hub, www.wispnetwork.org, and connect with us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram for more updates, webinars, and amazing insights from amazing guest speakers like Nancy and Yana, who are here to change the ratio. Thank you again for joining us today, and hope everybody has a great weekend. Happy Friday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shout out to Mary Lou with the snaps. Yeah. Bye, guys.